Hey everybody, my name is Suk. Welcome to Lead Guitar Workshop, and I want to talk about that. One of the most famous and most common pathways, you can call it a lick, that I've ever seen on the guitar. I call it the 1-2 slide because it so often connects the pattern 1 pentatonic to the pattern number 2 pentatonic. Pattern 1 is right here for if we're talking A minor or A blues or C major. This is what I call the rock and roll rule. Pattern 1 points to the two relatives of a key, A minor and C. So we want to be able to recognize this because we'll see why this lick is important with this idea. And in navigating that, in pattern 1, for whatever purpose you put pattern 1 down, pattern 2 is right above it. This being pattern 1. And you'll notice the top half of pattern 1 is also like the lower half of pattern 2. They're always the same 5 notes. That's why these patterns are always together. Once you know patterns 1 and 2, they're stuck together forever, no matter if it's major or minor. So this lick goes along the G string between these two patterns. So again, if we're just talking first pattern on the 5th fret, my first finger would be on the 5th fret of the G string. And for now, I would say always, but there's always a break in the rules. Use your 1st to 3rd finger. And then it's a 3rd finger slide up 2 frets to the 9th fret in this case. And that's into pattern 2. So the whole connector is the G string. There's different ways you can perform this. We'll talk about that in a second. But this lick, you need to get comfortable sliding back and forth with the 3rd finger. So you would slide up from 7 to 9, or slide down 9 to 7. You want to be very comfortable with your slides. You should hear both notes. It's not like you gliss back and forth, although you can. You want to be in control of the way you get between the two notes. So if we go back to the G, stand on the G string, go back to the 1st finger. And in one way, it sounds like, and it is, do, re, mi, 1, 2, 3 of a scale. We'll talk about that in a second. So that's the connector you need to get between 1 and 2. That sounds overly simple, right? What we do with that is where the fun and spice and all the stuff comes from. So let's look at this in terms of if it was minor. Now in the intro I did it as B minor, but I'm just going to explain it as A minor, just as easy to think about. So when I'm in pattern 1 of the pentatonics and I think of minor, then the lower of the 2 notes on the low string is the minor note. That's the A in this case. And I could count up 5 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. There's the A again. So that's the root when it's minor. Now in a blues situation, you often play a minor pentatonic over a major chord. That to me is the natural blues scale. So if you played an A minor pentatonic over an A7 chord, that's a blues scale. But the scale also being minor would work over A minor chords, of course. That's the natural scale. So the A is the root here. And when you think of it in A, whether you're using it as minor or blues, you could start the scale, at least in your ear, on the A, then go to the G string and up. Now, very often, once you're up in 2, again, you can kind of use this as a ladder between the 2, but once you're up in 2, a really common move that I add is using your middle finger, because it's right there, over, this case, the 8th fret. So right after you slide up, you can add that middle finger, and that's the highest note. So really it's 4 notes. Come back down, repeat it and come back down. And then you can go back to the A to help it lean back to minor. So to help your ear with this goes back to self-generating a little bit. Hit the chord first, A minor chord, then do the move. I like to reverse it. Hit the chord. Hear that sound in minor. Do it again, kind of maybe more in time with yourself. That's the move when it's minor. The cool thing is this can go with changes. You'll see Stevie Ray drag this thing all over the place, like in Couldn't Stand the Weather. He does it over B minor. He does a bunch of stuff, then he does it over A, I think, and then over G. So you can kind of move it with changes, just like you think a bar chord. The lick is also major. The cool thing about this 1-2 slide, we'll get in a little more of the details of it in a second, is that it's also major. So going back to the rock and roll rule, what I talked about, pattern 1, we said was A minor or A blues, is also C major. Now, even though they're the same notes, it's really important to recognize how different a sound they create when you put a different emphasis on a different syllable, if you rotate the starting note. So if you start on the C, in this case, in pattern 1, there are the 5 notes plus the 1 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1. And what does that sound like? My Little My Girl, right? So it brings out the major pentatonic is very lighthearted, sweet, singing, country, but it's the soulful stuff like the Hendrix and the Allmans would do as well. So when you play this on this lick as C major, when we started on the G string, that was already on the root of major. So if I hit a C chord, get the major sound in my ear. Now the lick has kind of a different vibe to it. Same move, right? So I'm going the 4 notes, C, D, I'm sliding up to the E, which is pattern 2, middle finger, which is still, I guess you could call pattern 1 or 2. It's in both. Then come back down. So if I can see that, how it relates, again, here's the pattern 1, right here on the 5th and 8th fret. So if I can see in the middle of pattern 1, that's a great start bonus. When you're playing major and you're using pattern 1, that G string first finger is a really sweet note to hit compared to the very highest note, which is a C as well, but you have nowhere to go but down from there. Right? So hitting that C in the middle is a great starting point as an improviser and a player. And hence that's lick. Really cool. Now, to me, licks are like a device. You've heard me talk about this before. That's a pathway, man. That's between like my house and my friend's house, and that's the woods between the 2 backyards, and we just tread the same pathway. And that pathway can be influenced. You can hang out over here, you can go that way, you can do different things with it. So let's talk about a couple of options you can do with this move, even if it's major or minor. It's so strong in both ways. Again, we'll talk about the intervals in a second. But some variations you can do with this are making a double stop out of the top notes. That right there, if you hold it down, there's a super common sound. You'll hear people kind of slipping into it. Out here, ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons would do that all day long. People will dip it. And that stuff's like hot sauce. You just gotta kind of put it on, see how much you like. You put too much on, and it's gonna sound a little weird. You can just come down the slide. I heard Johnny Winter recording. He was doing it up on D minor, and it was a slow ballad, but he was doing it really fast like this. And I almost didn't recognize it at first. I was like, what is that sound? I was like, oh, there it is. I recognized it, but it was just cool to hear it only coming down. And he probably did a little pull off too to make it really smooth. So there's a lot of ways you can ask of this lick. You can improvise with the move. You can create tension by repeating it and doing different things. You'll see it in song sections. Right? In Blue Sky, he transitions into that in E major. So you'll see it in parts of songs. You'll see it, people will bend it, which is really cool. It's the same kind of idea, but you're not sliding anymore. If we go back to the original one we talked about here. C, D, instead of sliding to the E, you can still hit the G with the pinky. That's why I say don't bend with the pinky, because you're gonna need it for other notes. really common sound. This is really core vocabulary. The cool thing about the 1-2 slide is I've seen it in every style of music. I've seen it in jazz, reggae, pop, funk, metal, classic rock, blues, of course. It's in every style. You can almost bank on seeing someone do this, man. It really, once you know the move and you see the little shoop, 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 you know exactly what it is. The other thing too, when you see this 1-2 slide, you're gonna start, when you recognize musically what it is, you'll see it in other places, not just actually in pattern 1-2. Let's take a quick last look at what it's actually doing musically. When we played this as minor, and we talked about the A, we're gonna call that the root of the minor pentatonic, right? That's root. The next note is a C, that's considered the flat third because it's 3 half steps away from A. That's what makes it minor, that sound. Then we go to the 4, which is D, and we're sliding up to the E, or bending, whatever, which is the 5th. Musically, as a musician in the melody world, the 5th is a really strong note. It's kind of like almost flexing your muscles a little bit. It has a really strong stance. When you hit that against a chord, it's just got a nice grip to it. So that's why it works so well over minor chords. Even if you add that G on top, that's a flat 7. So that works equally well in minor, because that's the minor 7th if it was an A minor 7 chord. In fact, you're basically making the arpeggio A, C, E, G. When you go over that D note, you're passing by a scale tone, not a chord tone. It even works great when it's a blues scale, because if this is A7, then you have the root, the flat third, that's the blue note, because it's fighting with this C sharp in the chord. The 4 goes right to the 5th and to the G, which is the flat 7. So it works great over the blues dominant sound. As a major pentatonic, this lick starts on the root, that would be the C, and it goes 1, 2, and slides from the 2 into the 3. That's the E. The E is the third of a C chord. So that instantly is getting you from root to 3, again, another chord tone to chord tone in the relative, in the major. 1, 2, 3, and then you're going up to the 5th, which is the G over the C chord. Again, there's that strong tone. So this particular lick that feels so comfortable and works so well as a guitar player also is so ideal as a musician. Because in the minor and major, it's really going through the chord tones, passing by the scale in between tone to do that. That's why it works so well. And you really gotta know this. You gotta recognize when people do it and stuff like that. Last little bit of stuff. The blue note, one of the blue notes, is in between the 2 higher notes on the G string. So you can pepper that in however you want. Meaning you could slide. Stevie Ray Vaughan used to go back and forth to that blue note. And you're building tension because you're hitting the blue note. And then you finally give it, that you release the tension by going up to the 5th or... Once you're up, the other last consideration is you'll have to change fingerings if you're sliding on the 3rd finger and you want to use 1 and 3 for the king box. So you'll have to think about it ahead of time. You have to be a little ahead of where you want to play in music to get back, knowing that you're going to go back down, use that 3rd finger, and that will set you up nicely to go right back. Right there. It's just a little kind of a hop, skip, and a jump over there. There's the 1st finger, and then you're in it. All right, well, I hope you like this. This is a core lick. You can take this one forever, man. This is a career setting lick. You can do so much with this. Again, my name is Suk. This is Lead Guitar Workshop, leadguitarworkshop.com. Check us out for lessons. We have 5 books we've put out there. We're going to keep uploading stuff, and we're here to help you guys play. Thank you so much for listening, and keep playing out there.